No, mine's on the floor.
Can't do food for you, but no, we can't do it.
Oh, fine. Oh, no, thank you. Bless you.
It's kind of chilly in here. Did you ask for that?
They gave it to me.
Yeah.
You want one?
No.
The hearing is now back in session. Ms. Rojas, I now have some questions that are going to jump around and kind of follow up on some of the earlier lines. I'm curious, in your role as a mission specialist, did you feel empowered to raise safety issues and stop a mission if there were concerns?
You were given the opportunity to voice any concerns you had to the OceanGate crew, if you thought something needed change. I saw change throughout the expedition, so I got the impression they heard you and acted accordingly.
But if you were on an expedition as a passenger or mission specialist during the dive, could you stop the operations for a safety issue?
I felt like I could, yes.
Did you ever raise a safety concern during a dive?
And no, I'm an underwater person. I was happy to be underwater.
Does that mean that you had some concerns, but you felt compelled to keep operating?
I knew the risk that I was taking and still decided to go.
I'd like to talk about the Andrea Doria expedition. You said you recorded some of that mission. Did you record the entire mission?
Pretty much. I mean, it's painful to watch. It gets cut off, at times, but I do have a lot of it, yes.
Did you record the interaction while the Cyclops was stuck at the bow?
I don't think I have the exact moment where we're in the prow. I think I have to look back at the video. Gladly, I'll give it to you.
No, thank you.
For the record.
I'd like to work through your counsel afterwards just to get any videos you have.
Yeah, no, we'll give you all the videos so you can watch. It's painful to watch, to be honest, but there's audio and you can see the sequence. When we were at the prow, I don't think I have any recordings of the discussion on the controller. I can tell you that I did not use any foul language. and that I was not really the one to ask Stockton to give the controller to Lockridge.
Understand. Did you see the exact passing of the controller between the two?
Did I see it? Yeah.
Was it handed to Mr. Lockridge?
It was put on his feet. He was standing up, looking on the dome on top, and Stockton just put it on the floor.
Did it temporarily break?
I did not see it broken.
Approximately how long was the Cyclops stuck under the bow? And I know this would be an approximation.
I don't know. It didn't seem that long to me.
I mean, would you say longer than 15 minutes?
No, maybe less than 15 minutes.
Did you, in your opinion, was the exchange between Mr. Rush and Mr. Lockridge tense during that time?
Yes, but there was no yelling or screaming. They both held themselves professionally, in my view.
Thank you. During Dive 88, I want to clarify one point. When communications were lost with the Titan, were you on the bridge at that time?
888 is which dive?
Oh, I'm sorry. During the
88 is
that was
the accident. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Were you on the bridge when communications were lost with the Titan?
No. I did come back when I checked and they had comms. I did see that they were trying to link to regain comms.
Understand.
Yeah.
During your time during the 2022 expedition, did you routinely assist the crew with maintenance of the Titan during off-cycle periods?
I was present, but no, I was not the one doing the maintenance. So.
But you were aware of the maintenance being conducted? You
Yeah,
observed that?
I was on deck, probably in the container, handing over tools.
And this would be your opinion, but I'm curious, in your opinion, from 2022 to the 2023 expedition, did you see a change in the level of maintenance being given to the Titan?
No, it just took longer because it was in the water.
So there were people maintaining the Titan on the 2023 expedition at sea?
For the very couple of platform dives that I witnessed, yes, there was people on the platform doing maintenance on Titan.
And just to clarify, I mean when the Titan was not diving, like during the
Once
off.
it came back to the surface, there were people on the platform doing something. You can't see it because you're in the ship, but.
Right, but were you aware of the maintenance times being conducted during the 2023
Of the what?
expedition? Were you aware that maintenance was being conducted while the Titan was not diving?
It seemed so, that they were doing maintenance while it was not diving.
Okay. Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to pass the line of questioning to the NTSB. Mr. Muse.
Good morning, Ms. Rojas. On the 2019 expedition, the one that was canceled, did anybody give you an explanation as to why the surface ship canceled on them?
Yeah, they actually sent us a letter. I can't remember the reasons why. OceanGate would send regular letters, and there's a letter that explains why.
Okay. On the Dive 88, the accident voyage, I think you said you were part of the platform, you were a platform assistant.
Yes.
Did you also play with the dome closing team? Were you part of that?
I think I was listed in the closing team as well, yes.
You mentioned earlier they were on strike one already because of a crew change.
Yeah.
Was that because Ms. Bay was not there?
Because who?
Because I understand Ms. Amber Bay was not there and she was the normal dome closing team leader. Is that right?
No, the person that was supposed to be driving the dinghy that morning was seasick and
That's why you were at strike one already.
right, that morning.
Was anything different in closing the dome on that last voyage?
Not that I remember.
How about bolts? Were all the bolts?
I was handling bolts. The mission specialist role was volunteer, supervised. You were not really in any critical decision-making, really just handing over tools and standing by in case somebody needed help. So I did not inspect the bolts. No, it was not my job to inspect the bolts.
Was there any bolts left over? When you were done in your hands?
Now, there was a whole box of bolts.
Okay. And lastly, in any of your expeditions to with Titan, did you observe any interaction with government officials between OceanGate and, let's say, Canadian Customs or Canadian Coast Guard, or
In what year?
any of the trips you made?
2021, Canadian Coast Guard boarded the ship at some point to ask questions about what we were doing.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Rojas, I just want to clarify, are you familiar with the Canadian authority structures?
No.
Typically, it could be, is it possible that there was a different Canadian organization like Transport Canada or the Canadian
maybe.
Coast Guard?
I have no idea. It was some official came on board, looked at all our passports, asked us questions, and then they left.
Understand. So it could be just really a Canadian authority in your view?
That was not my job.
No, understand. I just want, for the record, you're not
Yeah.
sure what organization was on board.
Right.
Ms. Rojas, I just want to ask some questions now related to the scientific operations.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever work with or have discussions with any scientists on the dives with OceanGate?
I dove with one in my dive. I had 12 hours of questioning.
With that scientist?
Yeah, asked him questions, etc.
Do you remember what field that scientist was with?
He was the head, he's Steve Ross. I think he goes after me if he's not watching. He was the chief geologist. His expertise, we had archaeologists. I think Steve was an expert on corals and fish. He knew a lot about corals and fish. I was definitely glad to have him in the sub with me. Definitely added value, in my view.
And do you know if OceanGate ever provided scientific data to any organization after a dive?
I don't know. I was a collector of the data, handed it over to the science team when they were done, or the pilot, or whoever was on board. They did give us talks about the science and what they were trying to do with the eDNA, which that's an acronym, sorry to use it, but I think it's DNA of the microorganisms that they collect. You could watch where they were doing it, and I hear the results of that are coming out soon.
And can you clarify what dives that was conducted on?
No, I don't know all of them. I know my dive had an Eskin bottle, and we collected sediment from with the skids.
Okay, so just to clarify, that was definitely the Titan expeditions.
That was Titan, second hull. Yes.
You talked about the waiver that was provided by OceanGate to mission specialists. Did Mr. Rush or anyone else discuss the experimental nature of the Titan to you directly?
Yes.
Did you understand this the Titan was not inspected by the U.S. Coast Guard?
Yes.
Were you aware that a classification society had not certified the Titan?
Yes.
Were you aware that the Bahamas had not registered the Titan?
Registered.
Or, I'll rephrase. Were you aware that the Bahamas did not flag or register the Titan submersible?
I don't think I asked what flag it had.
Were you aware that the Titan did not have a registration or flag?
Why is that relevant?
A vessel operating recreationally or commercially has to be registered or flagged by a state or a nation.
I'm not sure if it was flagged or not flagged. That was not a question that really concerned me.
Did you ever hear OceanGate discussing those matters?
I know that the reason that we're in the Bahamas is because it was deep water and it was faster to get to the deep water to do the testing.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go to OceanGate for questions for Ms. Rojas.
Thank you, Mr. Neubauer. Just a few questions, Ms. Rojas. Do you know whether the other mission specialists on the Andrea Doria dive went on subsequent expeditions with OceanGate?
I know Arthur was scheduled to go to Titanic.
Do you know if any of them went on any of the expeditions?
Well, Arthur unfortunately passed, so he didn't get his chance. I don't know if Chris went.
You mentioned that the Titan was experimental and that this was communicated to you. What was your understanding of what that meant?
Untested, new waters, completely new material, never used in deep water vehicles.
Thank you. You mentioned also that you understood that the Titan was not classed. What is your understanding of what that meant?
There was no classification program for a carbon fiber sub. It just didn't exist. It had to be made. So following the protocols for classification of a aluminum or titanium classed, I was not surprised to hear that it was not classed because there was no baseline for the classification.
In classification, did you understand that no external society, classing society, had externally validated this submersible?
Yes. And it was similar to the Apollo program. They tested by doing. And, Neil Armstrong didn't ask somebody, is this vessel classed before he went to space? He just got in and went. For me, it was the drive of exploration. You either understand it or you don't understand it, and exploration requires risk.
And you mentioned that you were involved in dive operations with companies other than OceanGate. Is that right?
Correct.
Which ones?
Only U-boat navigator.
And how would you compare your experience in terms of dive operations with OceanGate and with the other company that you dove with?
For me, the Triton subs are like the Ferrari of business. They're beautiful. So the sitting on the submersible was different. It was very comfortable. It was really the operation, and the operation that I went with to the Britannic was also very professional. So I didn't really notice any differences. That submersible used a crane to put us in the water. It had divers in the water. It took a while in terms of there was a lot of waiting. So that was similar. Everything else was pretty much the same.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rojas.
Thank you. At this time, does the board have any additional questions? Mr. Fawcett.
Ms. Rojas, my name is Keith Fawcett. Thank you for being here. I want to focus on the pre-dive assessments that were done prior to launching the Titan. Based on your experience, was the condition of the hull reported to be part of the pre-dive assessment?
We're talking Titan.
Yes, Titan.
Yes. The pilot walked around the sub and looked at every nook and cranny of that sub.
Were you aware that the white, as you described it, marble-like coating on the exterior of the Titan prevented visual inspection of the carbon fiber hull?
Well, it was usually off when they did that inspection, and then they put the fairings back on.
But I'm talking about the actual hull itself.
Okay, can you repeat the question then? The white coating?
Yeah, you said
There was
earlier
no
that
white
the,
coating.
yeah, you said the difference between Titan 1 and the second Titan, the one that was on Expedition 2023, had a white, smooth, marble-like coating.
No, I never said white coating.
Okay, a
I said
marble-like.
it looked different. It looked smoother in comparison to the prototype that you could see that it was wound. It was almost like the weaving was smooth. That's the only way I can explain it. To me, visibly, it looked different. It was not white coating on it, no. It was still gray or black.
So on that final dive, was the pre-dive risk assessment meeting held the morning of the dive?
Yes.
And on any of those dives that you actually made, was a pre-dive assessment made from inside the submarine once you were bolted inside, where they communicated to topside by radio?
Yes.
Did you ever hear the submersible pilot say that all of the real-time acoustic sensors were functioning properly?
There was a saying about that was one of the checks. I don't remember if they said they were all working properly or not working properly, but yes. The answer is yes.
So you mentioned strike one on the final dive.
Yeah.
How were the strikes communicated to Titan if the Titan was descending towards the bottom?
No, the strikes were determined before you actually took the dive. In the briefing, we'll say, okay, we're starting the dive after assessments were made of how people felt on a dive. Everybody was ready to get in the water. Were mission specialists ready and weighed? They went through all those checks, and then at the briefing, you say, okay, mission director would say, we're starting with strike one. At some point when we had the stop ski, they would tell you, okay, we have this number of strikes. Somebody, I'm assuming the pilot, was reporting to him the number of anomalies or strikes or the changes. If, like, one of the changes that morning was we're changing crew, so he would write it down. When we had the stop ski is when they announced to all of us by radio that, okay, the time is 9:15, we have 2 strikes or 1 strike, whatever number is, or no strikes. We're starting the stop ski for 5 minutes, and you took 5 minutes, and after that, you went about to your business.
Would you know if an inoperable Niskin bottle, a water sampling bottle, would constitute a strike?
I don't know, I think that would have been an anomaly.
And
That's to make experiments, right? So it just limits you in how many experiments you're able to make.
And my final question is, you were talking about the dome closing.
Yeah.
So in maintaining your dive equipment, your personal dive equipment, have you ever torqued bolts or fasteners to make sure they meet manufacturer's specifications?
In my own diving, scuba diving,
Yes.
breather equipment, any bolts?
Or nuts or screws so that they're fastened to meet the recommended manufacturer specifications?
We're getting to nitty-gritty, but yes, we do inspect all nuts and fittings on my rebreather before I take a dive, yes.
So in closing the dome and securing the bolts, did you witness them tightening the bolts to a certain specification and reporting that the bolts had been properly secured?
Yes,
And who would do that? Who would make that report?
the person that was doing the bolts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett. At this time, does the board or OceanGate have any final questions for Ms. Rojas? Okay. Ms. Rojas, is there anything that the board may not have asked you that you think would be of value to this investigation?
No, I'm here to help you out, try to get to the bottom of this. We all want to find out what happened.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the offer of the video and audio that you have. We'll work through your attorney. And before we conclude with your testimony, it's my understanding you would like to make a statement for the record. Are you prepared to do that now?
Yeah, hopefully I won't cry, but what we have all gone through.
Let's take a recess. And
It's okay.
we'll just-
I'm ready.
okay,
What
just
we
take your
have
time, please.
all gone through is still raw. Nothing is going to bring our friends back. I hope that this investigation creates an understanding that with exploration, there's risk. And without taking that risk and the exploration, the world will still be flat. I hope that innovation continues so we can make the oceans accessible to people like me who got to fulfill a dream. And that you still allow citizen scientists to participate in expeditions. Expeditions are needed, and the oceans are significantly underfunded. Private citizens are the ones funding the expeditions, and I hope that doesn't stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas. Ms. Rojas, you are now released as a witness of this at this formal hearing. Thank you for your testimony and cooperation. If I later determine that this board needs additional information from you, I will contact you through your counsel. If you have any questions about this investigation, you may contact the investigation recorder, Lieutenant Kelly Steele. Thank you again. I know this was an emotional testimony for you, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
The hearing will now recess, and we are going to start after a little early for our second witness, and so we will reconvene at 1 p.m.
Need anything, sir?
No, you're doing great. Thanks for those. That was really fun.
Oh, yeah, now's the time, I'll get that, yeah. Yeah. Yellow thing that was just, oh, this thing. Yeah. You have a card, you put that note, so she'll text you what she wants. noticed that? Because it's freezing. Yeah, one of the family members was like, I gotta go outside. I don't know if you know, yeah, we're in it. That's why it's so early.
Now, everything's working pretty good, so.
Yeah, and you know what they did? They put a Chrome extension for volume on that TV. Yeah, and how about that? Is that? Yeah. Well, the one IT guy did it was Nick talking to him on the phone. So you know Nick, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's a clever guy. I didn't hear it.
Something, you know, tomorrow, I'll be on out at WC tomorrow. Program, everything locked. So that's the only thing changed. And I don't think anybody's using this room for this point.
I'm gonna have to find out because tonight council chambers meets in here. That's why there's a debt and hard stop is free.
Okay.
So I'll have to find out because I don't know.
Like,
what
I
they're
for sure
using
know my
it for.
first one will be the watch.
That would screw everything.
The work one, I sometimes in and out.
Right.
No, I understand. Our settings are great. They can use our settings.
I've got it. Okay, I can talk to you about that. 'Cause
Instead of messing up.
yeah.
Carry two phones or something.
That's what happened. Just after Daniel came in. And all the settings.
They were,
Solid.
yeah.
All changes.
Oh,
So they can
they
all
were,
that out.
okay, because we had two different meetings in here yesterday, so somebody had their hands on it. Okay, okay.
If it, you know, if it works, if not, then we'll get it done.
They've been pretty agreeable with like everything. Like the people yesterday probably had no idea those were settings we wanted to keep, because I didn't know to articulate it. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't want you to have to start
Well,
over again.
it wasn't a big deal, but they asking us, and this person's saying this is not allowed, and the room is not.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you know what's
So
fun?
we're happy to, you know, whatever we get.
If they all stop. Yeah, they're all. Yes. She's another great one.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Okay, anytime, thank you.
These guys all turned up in cities.
Yes, they did. Yeah, I know, yeah, like all of them. I just want to introduce myself. Like, yeah. I'll come and have you here. This is Bruce Hikes. Hi, Bruce. He'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, sweet, okay.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear you were a part of it.
Oh, thanks.
Excited and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And several
Right, yeah. Yeah, this is a big project.
That's
Fifteen months is right here, yeah.
so,
But there was. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That should be over. Yes. Yeah, that one can be pretty okay the way it is. They might nibble on some of your food. Right? Yeah, that's, I know, yeah, that's.
I thought this morning was a little.
Was that? That couldn't have been on our end.
that's going to be difficult where I'm standing.
Okay, no worries. We'll continue on.
How's that?
That's
Hey,
fine,
fa-
sir.
A false statement given to an agency of the United States is punishable by fine and/or imprisonment under 18 U.S.C. 1001. Knowing this, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do swear.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Dr. Ross, I see that you have counsel present here in the courtroom. Counselor, can you please identify yourself and your firm for the record?
Glad to. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jason Harris. I'm an attorney with the North Carolina office of Farrell Smith O'Connell. We have the pleasure of representing Dr. Steve Ross.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ross, thank you for being with us here this afternoon. I'm going to now pass the questioning to Lieutenant Commander Thomas Whalen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ross, and thank you for being here with us again today. All of my questions are related to your background and experience with OceanGate as a scientific director. We will take a few breaks throughout the proceeding. If you need to take a break, just please let me know, and then we'll pause for that. Before we begin, I'll ask that you please refrain from using any acronyms. If you should use an acronym, I'll ask you to stop and please explain what the acronym means.
Okay.
I'm going to start off by asking you a few questions about your background. Dr. Ross, can you please tell us about your background as a research professor, to include your education and field experience?
I've been a marine scientist for over 45 years. My last academic position was as a full research professor at the University of North Carolina. I retired from that position, but I still have an adjunct appointment at the university. I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD degree in zoology, and most of my career has been in coastal, estuarine, and deep sea sciences.
Have you ever been part of manned submersible dives for scientific purposes, other than with OceanGate?
Have I used them? Is that the question?
Sorry, sir. Have you ever been part of manned submersible dives for scientific purposes, other than with OceanGate?
Yes.
Can you please tell me about those experiences?
I started using manned submersibles in 1979. Periodically during my career, when we needed undersea vehicles, I've used 8 different submersibles and a variety of remote operated vehicles, or ROVs.
Of those 8 submersibles that you utilized, were they different operating companies, or was it one company? Can you please go through the history of those, if you remember?
They were different companies. The subs that I used the most were the Johnson Sea Link 1 and 2, operated by Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute. Other subs came from a variety of different places. NOAA provided one mission, or 2 missions. I used one provided by Greenpeace at one point. Triton, the company that makes Triton submarines, provided one. So it was a mixture, but the 2 subs I used the most were the Johnson Sea Link subs.
And were all of these scientific missions completed as part of your official duties supporting research for universities?
Yes.
Does the university have an inspection procedure to verify safety for its members embarking on such missions?
No.
Do you have a process for vetting the submersible vehicle that you are to be operating in?
No, that's taken care of by the companies that we use.
Of the previous 8 submersibles that were utilized in your scientific research, were any of them inspected by the United States Coast Guard?
I wasn't involved in that process, so I don't really know for sure.
Do you know if any of the previous submersibles that you utilized were classed to a classification standard, such as ABS, DNVGL, or Lloyd's?
I was not involved in that process either, but my understanding is that most of them were classed probably by ABS.
When did you begin working with OceanGate?
I first met Stockton Rush and some of his OceanGate team in 2013, but we didn't work together until starting in 2018 when they invited me to be part of a science program and then asked me to be chief scientist in 2021.
And what did you believe were your primary responsibilities as the chief scientist?
I was brought in to help develop a scientific program to broaden the outreach of and the activities that OceanGate was involved in. So my role was to try to develop a viable science program using the Titan submarine.
And who funded your participation? Was it OceanGate?
My time was donated. OceanGate paid for science team travel.
And was it OceanGate Inc. who paid for the science team travel, or another associated organization?
My understanding was that the OceanGate Foundation supported the science team.
Were you operating in support of your official duties with regards to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, or independently?
No.
So you were operating independently?
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the scientific program that you were going to be leading for OceanGate from 2021?
Basically, what I was doing for OceanGate was the same model I had used in other projects to develop a program to explore unusual or unique habitats in the deep sea, to look at the composition of the biology, the composition of the habitats used, and we developed a program. I invited a scientific team to help with this activity, and we proceeded to evolve a program with OceanGate.
Was the work that you were doing on the expedition part of a larger research project, or was it specific to this expedition?
It was related to some of my other programs, but it was independent.
Was the University of North Carolina, Wilmington a partner with OceanGate in this expedition?
No.
Were you compensated in any way for your role as the chief scientist?
No.
Did you ever have a discussion with Mr. Rush regarding his expectation of you as the chief scientist?
Yes.
Could you tell me what you believed your expectation was as the chief scientist?
Basically, as I already stated, was to develop a science program with OceanGate. And it was left to me as to how that would proceed, although Stockton and I had several conversations about what I needed to do that.
On your expeditions, were there any other scientists aboard, and did they have their own agenda, or was it a collective research purpose?
There were other scientists that were part of the team, and they were operating under the umbrella that we were developing as a unified program. They were collaborators.
Prior to the Titanic expeditions in 2021, were you part of any other dives with OceanGate?
No.
as compared to other submersible dive and operations, the previous 8 that you had conducted, how would you compare the level of scientific interest between those and OceanGate with regards to the Titanic expeditions in 2021, 2022, and 2023?
If I understand the question correctly, in previous programs, science was the only focus. The OceanGate expeditions had multiple agendas.
What other agendas do you believe the OceanGate expeditions had?
The mission specialist had a variety of interest and needs, and OceanGate tried to accommodate those. One example being viewing the Titanic shipwreck.
How much actual interest into your scientific program did mission specialists have in conducting the science and research?
Objection.
I didn't have conversations with all of the mission specialists, and I was not
Dr.
on
Ross, hold on for a
every.
second, please.
I'm sorry, Dr. Ross. Yes, sir, you objected to the question?
I don't know that I need to be heard any further than just a remark. If the questionnaire is going to ask Dr. Ross about the information supposedly known by others, I think that this witness is not going to have that information. That's all.
Okay, understand, sir, but in this proceeding for administration, we can ask questions of what a witness has heard from others if they're willing to, answer that.
Sure, I agree. He can, if he knows the answer.
Okay.
Right? I'm not sure that was what the question is.
Okay.
He's free to answer if he knows.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Ross, just the conversation is, for administrative hearing, if you recall, hearsay, you can provide that to the board. But if you're not comfortable or didn't hear the conversation, please just make that clear.
I can rephrase.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Dr. Ross, what do you believe was the primary mission of OceanGate expeditions in 2021, 2022, and 2023?
To visit and view the Titanic shipwreck.
What did you believe, or how would you describe what a mission specialist is to me?
A mission specialist, as I understood it, is a person who paid for a berth on the ship to visit the Titanic and be involved in other parts of the operation if possible.
Recorder, I'm going to ask you to please bring up Exhibit 008 and scroll to page 9. And Dr. Ross, please let me know when you're able to see what the exhibit on the screen.
I'll have to sit closer.
Is it page 9?
Page 9, please. And sir, this is from Titanic Expedition 2022, and it is the science and dive plan that was part of the submission from OceanGate to NOAA for a Section 113 approval authorization. Did you have any part in creating this document and this science plan?
Well, all I see is one page, and it looks like the first page of the science plan that I wrote for OceanGate. Yes. I think my name is on it. Should be.
It's redacted for purposes, sir. And for Expedition 2022, Were you able to actually gather the data that was for purpose in this science plan?
We gathered sufficient data to write a scientific paper.
And was that paper released?
It's in development still.
You can take that down, reporter. Were you made aware that the Titan submersible that was being used for the 21, 22, and 23 expeditions was not inspected by United States Coast Guard?
Yes, I think so.
Were you aware that the Titan submersible was not built to a classification standard?
I'm not aware of those engineering details.
While on board these expeditions, did you provide any training sessions or presentations to the crew and the mission specialists during the expedition?
Occasionally only related to the science.
Based upon the dive log or the logs that were provided from OceanGate, you took part in 3 dives, 2 of which were in 2022 and 1 which was in 2023. Is this correct?
Correct. Yes.
You did not partake in any dives in 2021. Was there a specific reason for that?
I was supposed to join the mission, and I still fulfilled the role of chief scientist, but I had a back injury and could not attend that cruise.
Can you please describe, in the final, or in the transcripts that were posted earlier for the dive 88, there was a mention of a Niskin bottle. Can you please tell us what a Niskin bottle is and how that is utilized?
A Niskin bottle is a very simple mechanical device used to collect water samples. It's basically a PVC tube with 2 end caps. The end caps are held open by an elastic mechanism. When you get to the location or the depth where you want to take a sample, you can trigger those end caps to close, and they capture a water sample.
Dr. Ross, in Expedition 2022, were you there for the entirety of the expedition, all 5 missions?
No, I only attended mission 4 and 5.
Were you on board for dive 80? Do you know offhand?
Yes.
On dive 80, according to the remarks section of the dive log, there was a loud bang heard after surfacing. Would you like me to reference it?
Could I just clarify, when you say on board, do you mean on board the submersible or on board of the vessel?
I'll clarify. Were you?
I was on board the vessel.
So you were on
Ship.
board the vessel. By vessel, I mean Horizon Arctic at the time of the dive of dive 80 on the Titan. Of the
Yes.
Titan. Okay. So on dive 80, according to the remarks section of the dive log, there was a loud bang heard upon surfacing. While you were on board the vessel, Horizon Arctic, were you made aware of this remark and or this instance where there was a loud bang?
Yes.
And what was discussed? Was anything discussed specifically with you, or was it discussed amongst the crew? Can you please tell me about that?
There was wide discussion about the noise amongst all of the crew, mission specialist, OceanGate, science crew. Everyone was interested in what that noise might have been.
And was there a determination on what that noise may have been?
I was told there was a theory about what it could have been.
And do you remember what that theory was? And if so, can you please share?
I can't recall that in great detail. I was told that there was likely a shifting of the pressure hull in its steel or metal cradle that when it popped back into place could have made that loud noise.
And in the inspection after dive 80, did you witness OceanGate personnel inspecting the hull after dive 80?
I have no knowledge of that.
At any point, did you witness them pull the hull insert out to gain access to do a visual inspection of the interior of the hull?
I did not witness that.
You were listed as a crew member on dive 81.
Correct.
Can you confirm? That was one dive after the one where they heard the loud bang. What were your thoughts about their determination on what the loud noise was on dive 80 if you were diving in a subsequent dive? Did you have any concerns?
Yes, I was concerned and asked their chief engineer, Phil Brooks, if he was concerned.
And what did he tell you?
He said that this noise was a concern and that the OceanGate team was focused on trying to determine the source of the noise and that would influence whether we made future dives.
Did they ever provide you any specific analysis of the real-time monitoring system?
No.
So I'd like to shift to dive 81. Can you tell me a little bit more about that dive?
Could you be a bit more specific?
Yes, sir. So dive 81, according to the log, you reached 3,840 meters, which was the depth at which the Titanic wreck site sat. Were you able to visually see the Titanic wreck?
Yes.
And as you, prior to getting to the depth of 3,840 meters, can you talk to me about the drop weights and as you were descending through the water column, do you remember approximately at what depth you would have dropped the drop weights?
No, we dropped 2 roll weights, but I do not remember the depth.
Can you tell me a little bit more about dive 81? And you said you were able to actually witness and see the Titanic. Were you able to conduct any scientific research while on that dive?
Yes, we collected 2 water samples with the Niskin bottles. We had a CTD instrument on every dive, and on that dive we recorded salinity and temperature of the water, and we made video observations with the cameras, external and internal cameras.
Sir, can you please tell me what CTD means?
I'm sorry, conductivity, temperature, depth, and from conductivity and temperature you can calculate salinity.
Thank you, sir. Were you aware of any issues or instances of malfunctioning of the thrusters while on board this dive?
Yes.
Can you please tell me about that?
When we reached the bottom, the pilot, Scott Griffith, determined that one of the main thrusters was reversed. The controls were reversed. That was the main issue with when we were on the bottom.
And so how did the pilot overcome this, the reversing of the thruster controls?
There was some conversation with the surface. They determined that they couldn't really change that problem or the issue. There was discussion of whether to terminate the dive, but in the end, to his credit, Scott Griffith retrained himself to operate the thrusters normally. Basically, he retrained his thinking. And we proceeded with the dive.
Sir, also while on this dive, while in the sub, were you also aware that other things were happening within the sub, such as the port drop weights wouldn't drop? This is according to the maintenance log. There was flashing lights, the port battery dropped, the sonar dropped, 4K dropped, 2KH was stuck, and then there was a 419 after touchdown due to the controller drop. Were you aware of
So, I was going to say that was a long string of.
Thank you.
I apologize. And I could summarize.
Well, also the code numbers, Commander Whalen.
Sure.
Dr. Ross, does any of that sound familiar to you, sir?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Were you aware of these other incidences that were happening while on board the dive?
Most of the ones you listed, yes.
And being that you were part of Expedition 21, 22, and 23, was this a common occurrence or throughout your experience that there was multiple mechanical or material failures while on dives?
I don't have knowledge of every dive.
Okay.
I didn't have access to the submersible logs that were kept by OceanGate.
Understood, sir. After Expedition 2022, did you conduct a debrief or an exit interview for the expedition?
With
OceanGate or Mr. Rush?
I wouldn't call it an exit interview. We continued to have conversations before, during, and after the expeditions.
At what point did you decide to return for Expedition 2023?
It almost right away. I never determined that I would not be part of it.
When did you become aware of the new support vessel, the Polar Prince, and the new transportation operation of the Submersible?
I don't recall exactly when that was.
For Expedition 2023, when did you come aboard the expedition? Which mission?
Mission 4.
Prior to your arrival, were you made aware of any instances that occurred prior to your arrival with regards to the towing of the submersible?
Yes.
Can you tell me about what you were briefed upon?
Before I boarded the vessel, at our hotel, I was told that the submersible snagged an obstruction while being towed at night. The obstruction was assumed to be abandoned fishing gear, but that was never, it was not conclusive. It caused some excitement.
Were you made aware of any damage that was caused from that incident?
I am not.
Had you ever been part of a submersible operation in which the submersible was towed atop a platform for an extended distance?
No.
So in Expedition 2023, you were part of Dive 87, is this correct?
Correct.
Can you tell me about Dive 87? What was the plan for Dive 87?
we could not dive at the Titanic site due to weather issues, so we moved. We were northwest on the continental slope, and we had a target depth for a dive to 2,000 meters.
Recorder, I'm going to ask you to please bring up exhibit number 53, which was the NOAA weather report for the Polar Prince Expedition 2023. With regards to the towing and launch operations, did this cause you any concern?
Can you be more specific?
Being that this was an operation that you had never been taken part of with regards to the towing of the submersible and the launch and recovery platform, did this add any extra or any extra risks in the operation?
Probably so. That's a bit out of my area of expertise, but the towing was awkward.